So after I got laid off from Google, I was home with my baby. I realized that I was truly addicted to productivity.
And I'm like, man, her one cheaters are amazing.
And I probably spent way too much time dating certain people because I was like, wow, that's so interesting.
I think people who are extremely burnt out feel this lack of agency.
And was like, they're just socks.
You can't ride a bike without riding a bike, but riding a bike is not that hard.
Why am I doing this? I don't actually like this. I ended up learning a lot through those failures. So I think I've also become more open to the idea of being wrong. I want my career to be is what I want it to be and not what someone else tells me. You don't have to monetize everything that you do.
Moving out of big tech into education.
Hey, welcome to the Wide World View podcast. I hope you enjoyed part one of Kate's episode, where she delved deep into her experience as a woman dealing with burnout in the corporate world. The second part of the episode, we touch upon some of the practical aspects of nurturing emotional sustainability that Kate employed in her life that you could learn from too. So don't worry about the socks.
Generally sounds like an emotionally challenging environment to build your economic foundations on. So I want to explore that a little bit more. As I said earlier, my mission now is to help people build emotionally sustainable careers, because we build financially viable careers. That's the bias that we have with our education system, the increase in vocation, that in industrial jobs, and what we've seen over the last 100 years or so. So I want to talk a little bit about how you think about emotional sustainability in your life and your career, especially since moving out of big tech into education, different industry, potentially a different sort of end goal as well. So I'd love for you to explore this aspect of emotional sustainability within your career through the last few years, and generally through your journey
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. I think it's really important to know yourself at a level of when too much is going to be too much, and keep yourself away from overexerting to prove your worth. Because I really burned myself out a lot thinking I can't make mistakes. I have to deliver this. I have to deliver it early. I have to deliver more than what is expected of me. And a lot of that is, the performance review culture that we were in. But every little thing is not make or break for your career.
Yep.
And that's where I got it wrong was, okay, if I didn't do an A+ job on this one cheater,
I used to look at your one cheaters and I'm like, man, her one cheaters are amazing.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that you thought they were amazing because I put a lot of time into
I mean,
them.
in terms of like the formatting and stuff, I would be, and the one cheaters I would send across, I was like, I need to use her template.
That's hilarious. But that being said, I probably spent too much time on those things. And there were times where I would put so much pressure on myself. I'd be in the shower before work crying because I didn't do something that I thought I needed to do.
That's
Like
not
sometimes
nice.
we're our
Yeah.
own worst enemies, where we make too big of a deal out of something. And now I think actually also being a parent helps this in some ways, where you realize that you can't get upset about everything and you have to actively choose, like,
You
this isn't
can't
going
take
to be the
everything
thing.
on, right? What do you want to take
Yeah,
on?
this isn't going to be the thing that I'm going to lose my mind about.
Yeah.
When I first had kids, I would get so stressed every time I lost their socks. I mean, it sounds crazy, but I would be like, I don't know why I can't find all the pairs to these socks. Look at all these socks. And my husband was like, they're just socks. And then as we were parenting longer and we had sickness and we had, like all of these bigger challenges,
Yeah.
I stopped caring about the socks. But when I first became a parent, I didn't realize, all of these other things that were going to come. And I think that's really hard for people early in their career,
Yep.
is they're worrying about the socks because they don't know the other things that are going to come later in their career. So you burn yourself out early worrying about the things that don't really matter that much just because you maybe don't have the perspective yet.
Yeah.
And it's like I wish I could go back and sit on my own shoulder at age 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, onward, and be able to whisper like, this thing isn't going to matter.
Yep.
Because at the time it felt like everything was so high stakes, because I was
Yep.
trying to get that promotion, or I was trying to get that raise, I was trying to impress this certain person who had an influence on my um, performance scores, and looking back on it, there was some of that mattered, but there was a lot of it that didn't. And I put too much pressure on the things that ultimately ended up not mattering, just because I didn't realize at the time. And now I definitely pace myself more on where I put my concern and attention, and just don't get as emotional or as upset if some things don't work out.
Yep. Yeah, it's not an all or nothing play, right? In my book, I talk about how you can't ride a bike without riding a bike, but riding a bike is not that hard. You, especially in today's world, something that
Yeah.
affected me personally as well. I felt burnt out probably the last 3 4 years of my career at Google, and it was a journey to
Yeah.
get to a point of I accept this and this is what I'm feeling. Uh, but
Yeah.
what would have and I'm someone who variety is one of my core values as well, and I enjoy
Mm.
new problems every few months and new projects, and that was
Yeah.
missing from my life. But it could be
Mm.
as simple, it was as simple as going out and just dipping my feet into something. It doesn't have to be
Mm-hmm.
me knowing exactly this is the path, or like the corporate path gives you goals every few years, right? 2 years promotion, next
Yes.
promotion 3 years, or this much money, there's levels, there's a
Mm-hmm.
path. So I think that, and the way our education thinks of education biases us towards a particular path, um, keeps us from exploring alternate paths, and they're not especially in the AI
Yeah.
and the internet economy today. Those paths have become much easier to explore, and as you said, that doesn't
Yeah.
everything doesn't matter in your life. I tried 5 or 6 different things, post my layoff, and
Yeah.
without putting too much pressure on anything. And we have this, oh, everybody's watching me, or this, this
Mm.
is an all or nothing. I need to know where this goes even before I begin. So talk talk
Totally.
talk to me a little bit about, you had some of that. You've done a bunch of roles post your Google life as well,
Yeah.
and you dabbled in consulting, that experienced an alternate path, but then went back into a more
Yep.
conventional job, so to speak. So yeah, talk to,
Yep.
because I think people who are extremely burnt out feel this lack of agency over their own career or their path.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
and all they're looking for eventually is a bit of connection. So even if that doesn't give you money and gives you connection, I think it's still valuable to explore that, or dip your feet, get a feel of it, and not just be too
Yeah.
hell bent on knowing where you're going with this, not making it. So yeah, just so talk about that through your practical experience in the last couple of years. So
Yeah. That that resonates with me a lot. After I was laid off, I realized, and I didn't know it at the time, and I thought that I was much mentally healthier than I actually was. Um, I realized that I was truly addicted to productivity
hmm.
and
Yeah.
addicted to work, where I was seeking this feeling of accomplishment. So after I got laid off from Google, I was home with my baby, and I felt like, even though I knew, okay, this is where I should be focused, it didn't feel like enough. And I felt like, oh, I need to start a blog. I need to do something. And I started it, and I wrote a few posts, and then I was like, why am I doing this? I don't actually like this. And I remember I had posted it on LinkedIn that I was doing this blog because I felt like, okay, I need something to show for myself of what I'm doing with my time. And then I felt so embarrassed that I abandoned it, of like, oh, I failed. And I talked to my husband a ton about it, of like, oh, I'm such a failure. I put this thing out there and then I didn't continue it. And I stopped doing it because I didn't like it, and I didn't actually have the time for it. So I don't know why I was beating myself up so much, but it was because of a fear of looking like a failure, and not having that, something to show for myself, or that something, what my time is actually going to. Although I had a baby, that should have been enough. The fact that I wasn't creating something, I wasn't, I didn't have some output. And that really is how we're conditioned of, you go and you do elementary school, and then you do high school, and then you do your college, and then you go to a job, and then you have this promotion, you have this promotion, you have this promotion.
You do that
It was like
endlessly.
always like, yeah, it was what you were just saying about that thing of like, what's the next thing, what's the next thing. And I tried a bunch of different stuff during that time. I tried to prototype a product, which I'm really glad that I didn't end up creating because of all the stuff that's happening with imports and exports and tariffs and all that. It would have been really challenging right now. And I abandoned that because I was like, man, I don't actually want to be thinking about supply chain. Like, yeah, I think it's really interesting to solve a problem, but then the act of actually going and manufacturing things and raising money, and like the act of being an entrepreneur is so much more than just doing the thing. It's doing all the other things, doing the accounting, doing
Yeah.
uh what is the packaging going to look like. And as my head was just swimming through all of it, and I was like, I actually don't have the headspace for this. So I tried all these different things thinking, okay, is this going to be the thing, is that going to be the thing? And then I kept feeling bad about myself that I failed. But then the interesting thing that happened about it is I ended up learning a lot through those failures of the things that I really did not want to do, or the
Yep.
things that I really didn't care about. Like, okay, I thought that being an entrepreneur would be such a cool thing. And we really idolize entrepreneurs in our society now. And yes, so many of them are amazing, but we need to also recognize that it's not for everyone.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
even if it is for you, maybe it's not for you at that time in your life.
Yep.
It was not for me at the time of my life when I had a 6-month old.
Yep.
And it's not for me in the time of my life right now,
Yep.
where I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old who was recently diagnosed with autism. Like, I have to pour my time into those personal things while also maintaining my career, being able to support my family financially. I'm very happy with the job that I'm in, but I'm not going to be able to be the person who is going and trying new things every day and solving these really hard problems and figuring out supply chain and figuring out how to find a manufacturer and figuring out how to create a hook that doesn't exist in the world for this product because I want it to do this feature. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have the headspace for that. So I did decide to go into a more structured job because I know how to exist in that world.
Yep.
I have experience existing in that world. I have the skills to do it. I'm very willing to work hard, but I'm not willing to burn myself out where I can't be there for my personal commitments right now.
Yeah.
So that is what I've chosen right now. And consulting I really liked, for what it's worth. I liked the flexibility. I liked having new challenges, but I realized so much of it was going out and finding the new business and sales.
Yep.
And I thought, well, I want to be doing marketing. If I wanted to be doing sales, I would get a job in sales.
Yep.
So I'm just going to go find a job where I can focus on doing the thing I actually like, which is marketing, versus having to go sell myself all the time for new projects and new gigs.
Yeah.
So that's why I made this particular decision at this point in my life. It doesn't mean I'll do this forever. I am really happy where I'm at. I think I'll be there for a while, but it's okay to have seasons too. And it's okay to make an
Exactly.
active choice of, I'm still a career driven person, but I'm going to take a few years
Yeah.
where I need to be able to span a couple of different places and choose something stable and choose something that um, I can excel at, that maybe isn't this hard charging, I'm going to go create, a new product. I'm going to create a new startup. I'm going to, all this, like, you may just not have that capacity, and that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
you can still be a good professional. You can still have a successful career, but go through different phases where you turn things up or turn things down. It doesn't have to be 110% all the time for 50 years. It's
Yep.
just not, that truly is not sustainable.
Yep. Sounds like, your whole journey got you from this place of existential dread, so to speak, where you're just wondering about the path to clarity. That's something I talk about. Like, if you go, try and ride your bike, whatever that bike is, and you come to that, you will then come to an empowered place where you know that this is
Mm-hmm.
not for me, or not for me right now, right? You're not ready to climb
Yeah.
Everest or Kilimanjaro right now, so we can do that later, right? We are
Right.
we I think
Yeah.
we're in this. There's a great book on burnout called Burnout Society, written by
Mm.
He's a Korean guy. I don't want to massacre his name, so I'm not going to say it. But Burnout Society is the book in which he calls
Mm-hmm.
our society an achievement society. What's the next
Yes.
thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And I think I really related to that as you were, talking through your path towards emotional sustainability. And I'm glad you're at that place of clarity Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and I say that now, and it's funny because I'm sure the way that I spoke about my early career of I didn't know what I didn't know, I'm sure 10 years from now, I'll look at myself now and
exactly.
think, I wish I had known this thing. So I think I've also become more open to the idea of being wrong or the idea of changing course
Yeah,
if it's not the right thing. Like
yeah,
I briefly went into a nonprofit scenario after Google, and it was not right whatsoever for me. And it really tore me up deciding what to do about it because I was miserable, very
yeah,
unhappy. And after 6 months, I finally said, you know what? I'm not going to spend time in an unhappy job.
yeah, yeah,
It's not something I'm willing to do. So I resigned, and it felt horrible. It felt like a failure. It felt like, there was the kind of the classic thing of you should be in a job for a year that I had to break with, but I wasn't willing to do that at that point in my career, and I knew that there would be other options. And
yeah,
so I broke away from it. And interestingly enough, I've had other conversations with people around our age and our experience level in careers who have done something similar of I went into this job and it really wasn't what I signed up for,
yeah,
or I saw unethical behavior, or whatever reason it was, and they decided to cut the ties early. And so I actually think people are starting to come around to that realization of it's actually not worth it to bide your time when you're 40 in something that's not
yeah.
working for you.
Yeah, I think something I talk about in my book is this exploration of your values, and I think everyone should evaluate that
Mm,
continuously, um, and making those values your anchor, and that requires certain introspection in terms of what drives you. If just upward vertical growth and certain things that if
mhm.
if that is what is driving you as your value system, that's great. I think people do very well in the corporate world that way, and also build amazing careers. And I think we know some people like that, and I'm like,
Yeah.
those people are meant for that, and I loved working with them or for them. And
Yeah.
but it was important for me to personally be in a space of emotion where my emotional sustainability um, came
Yeah.
first. And I think my values, that introspection, I think played a big role in that. So I want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
And what was the role of some of the values that have driven you, not just in the past few years but even before, and if they've evolved. And how have you used
Mhm.
those to make certain conscious decisions about your career?
Yeah. I was fortunate to have a training at Google that was called the Polaris program, and it was for sort of emerging quote unquote women leaders. And um, part of it was that you got a certain number of sessions with a coach.
Yeah,
And I had an amazing coach. I loved her so much. And I actually contracted with her after the layoff to do a few sessions personally that I paid for because I found a lot of good insight from her. And we did the values exercise together. And I really thought a lot about it. And in the values exercise that we did during that course, independence was my first value initially. And a lot of it was that history that I already talked to of that feeling of needing to be independent. I don't want anyone to have to financially support me.
yeah,
And although I still feel that, I feel that less. And I really interrogated that as the knee jerk reaction. And I remember asking the coach, are your values something that you think you've already achieved or that you're already living, or should they be aspirational for what you want to be?
mhm,
And initially it was the first of it should be what you already kind of do, like what you already really feel convicted in. And I understood that and I did it, but it really wasn't sitting right with me, where I thought, I'm still putting independence up there, but I don't think that's right anymore. Or I think I should really think if I should act that way still.
yeah,
And I ended up replacing my number one value of independence with authenticity. And authenticity to me could still include the fact that I want to be financially stable. Like that
yeah.
is something I really believe in and I really
But you've
like.
solved for that already, so that doesn't need to be a driver,
Right,
right? Yeah,
it's not the only part of who I am.
yeah,
And I'm really not someone that likes to like bullshit people. I'm pretty straightforward. Like I just and I also don't like what feeling if I'm being lied to or if somebody's twisting the truth or manipulating me. And that's kind of the one thing I really don't like in a colleague is if somebody lies to me or if I feel like somebody's trying to manipulate me. If somebody makes a mistake, I can forgive that. I can work with them. I make mistakes too, but I don't like when people are dishonest. And so that's why authenticity really bubbled up to the top for me is I realized that for a lot of my career, I was doing it for the perception of what I was doing because I wanted to be a successful person or look like a successful person. But what I want my career to be is what I want it to be and not what someone else tells me, you should be. And I think at Google there was kind of those progressions of, well, you should try to be a manager, or you should try to do this job, and
Yeah.
we got to get you to this level and all of that. And I'm very grateful for the people that helped me with those things, but I realized I never interrogated those in the moment of whether those were the things I wanted. I did them because that was what someone was advising me to do and what I knew was going to make me successful in that context. And
Yep.
so now that I've got authenticity at the forefront, it reminds me to interrogate something that I'm doing of whether do I really want to do it or am I doing this because I think other people would like it or be impressed by it or whatever. Like that motherhood blog that I tried to do, I realized it actually wasn't for me. It's
Mm,
because I felt like I needed to be doing something.
mm,
And people needed to see that I was doing something. And so now I just don't want to do that anymore.
yeah.
And that's kind of really driven my number one value. And I have other values too, but I think that's the biggest one that shifted for me. And I realized so much more how important community is that um when I got laid off and I really opened up and I was vulnerable about it, it brought so many more people to me to talk to me about their struggles and talk to me about things that you don't talk about in a normal, hey, how are you, I'm good, how was your weekend,
Yeah.
like it's much more deep conversations that I have with people now about their careers, their lives, etc. And I feel much more supported and I feel like I've been able to give much more support to other people.
Yeah, I mean, you're touching upon something that's, I think, like one of the insights that I talk about in the book as well, where the people in your immediate corporate context understand your context or your daily work context the most, right? And we are, I think, taught to put out these outward expressions of, oh, I'm
Hmm.
normal, or this is I'm a high functioning person, where you don't
Personal
feel,
branding.
yeah, you don't feel empowered to be vulnerable. But at an individual level, you can actually feel so empowered through vulnerability, mutual vulnerability. And I think the crux of why we're sitting here a decade later as well, because I think we were people who enjoyed that in a colleague. And even though we were different parts of the world, I think that empowerment really comes through vulnerability, because eventually we have this
Hmm.
feeling that this is a unique experience I'm having. But especially through this book and whatever I'm doing now, it's mostly everybody goes through the same cocktail of emotions, driven by maybe at different times, driven by different
Yeah.
triggers. But it's so important to,
Yeah.
in my opinion, empower yourself through mutual vulnerability, because I think the secret sauce of that drives people,
Hmm.
right? And that drives connection. um, yeah.
Yeah, and I think you can learn so much by listening to other people's stories.
Yep.
Um, you brought that up before about being someone who was generally pretty aware of different types of people and whatnot, and that you had wanted to be more involved in the women's groups, but didn't know how. But I think you are one of those people who makes deep connections and you listen to people and you absorb it and you're sort of like a deep feeling person. And I think I'm kind of similar where I and I did this so much in my dating life too, which was not a good idea, but I would love to just sit with different people and like hear about their experience just because
Same.
I found it interesting.
Yeah.
And I probably spent way too much time dating certain people because I was like, wow, that's so interesting. I want to learn more about
That's
that.
so
And my
relatable to
friend,
me.
I know, and my friends would be like, well, you don't have to date them to learn about it. You can just go to coffee with someone who does, whatever. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, all right, you're right. So, but but I think it's sort of this genuine interest in people that are different from you just for the sake of learning. And from a career perspective, I think you learn a lot where if you just listen to what other people have gone through or listen to what other people are enjoying, listen to the types of careers that other people have gone into, like this podcast, I'm sure just hearing the career paths of other people can stimulate some things within people of, oh, I don't think I would like that at all, or oh, actually that sounds interesting. And I don't think we get enough of exposure of that in our early lives and early careers to stimulate the thoughts of what else you could do or what else you could be or what else you could pursue. We kind of get stuck into these, okay, I'm majoring in economics and this is my path.
Yeah.
And we don't reward as much of the kind of curiosity and creativity that could exist if we spent more time just opening up and listening to other people and trying other things.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's one thing that brings us together is
Yeah.
just that
And
interest of like, oh, what's that like?
yeah, and this exposure to different people and journeys that you talked about, I think we were lucky enough to, even within the the Google umbrella, we worked in global teams throughout our career.
Mm-hmm.
I went through different
Yeah, I
locations,
loved that.
New York, Ireland, Singapore, India, which is just exposed me to
Mm-hmm.
so many different ways of life, how society is set up, right from like things like nuts and bolts stuff like taxes to cultural stuff. So how did that evolve your perspective in any way? Exposure to different people from around the world.
Yeah, it really did. I'm very grateful for working on
Yeah,
a
me
global
too.
team.
Yeah.
Um, I have no interest in learning tax codes in other countries. That sounds horrible, but I enjoyed working within different cultural contexts, and it does serve me now. When I will come across someone who's from a certain country, and if I had experience working with teams there or going and being in meetings there, obviously you can't generalize a whole culture, but I can think, oh, okay, I remember, yeah, like this place was a little bit more formal, or this place, they did speak more direct. And so I know I shouldn't take that personally. I should just, understand that that's part of the communication, from the culture that person comes from. Like, I do think having that awareness serves people well, even if you're not working in a super culturally diverse place. I mean, certainly you will come across people in your life from different places.
Yep.
And having that awareness, I think, helps you navigate and make better relationships with those people.
Yep.
Even just the fact that we traveled to India, when we went to Mithra's wedding, and you so kindly shepherded us through India, which was so unfamiliar for three white women. Now there are times like I just like to hear when I meet people and I'll ask them, oh, where are you from? And they'll say, yeah, I'm from Bangalore. And I'll be like, oh, I've been there, and it's just like nice to have that connection
Yep.
of what that's like, even though, I was scared for my life crossing the street. Like, I just have the context of what that place looks like. And I don't know what their upbringing was like. I don't know much about their culture, but I know that I like that I know just the littlest drop to be able to create that relationship. And same thing like for me, if somebody's been to Phoenix, I'm like, oh, like amazing. What did you see there? What did you do? Like, it's just being able to have that small connection point that jumps off to something maybe bigger or not.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work. You can't always
Yeah.
generalize that. But I think
Exactly.
just that general awareness is great. It can only serve you,
Yeah.
I think. And, I really think people are most afraid of people that they've never had any experience with. Like, I have known a number of non-binary people, and I've known some trans people in my life, and I think to me, like, it's just another person. And like, I've talked to them about their experiences and whatnot, and it's so interesting because when I talk to people, in this very polarized political environment, who will say something anti-trans, like I will ask, have you ever known a trans person?
Yeah.
Most of the time it's no.
Yep. Lack of
And
familiarity,
and
right? People are scared of what
it's
they're
just,
not familiar
yeah,
with.
100%. And I'm not faulting people because maybe they never just came across someone or whatever it is, but if you have that curiosity and if you learn more, I think you really do it opens your mind and you become a more accepting person. And I don't think any of this is new insight. I think this is
Yeah,
things like this have been talked about a lot,
exactly.
out in different
Might be new
research. And
context, but it's stuff that's been true
yeah,
forever. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, I guess I say it all just that in my personal experience, I have just found that to be so true.
yeah,
Like, there is research out there about it that kind of validates this, but uh, I saw the power of it firsthand so much in my
yeah,
personal experience of kind of just getting to know other types of people and spending the time with other types of people. And I'm fearless now. Like, I used to be kind of afraid to spend time or to ask people for their time, but now I'm like, you want to grab a coffee, you want to grab a
yeah,
Zoom. Like, if they don't respond or say no, I don't take it personally
yeah,
anymore. And most of the time people will say yes.
yeah, yeah.
And then there have even been times where I've gotten on a Zoom with someone and they're like, well, what favor do you want to ask of me? I'm like, nothing, I just want to talk.
Yep,
I just want to
yep,
get to know you, or I just want to talk more about the job you're doing. I'm just curious.
yeah,
I don't need you to refer me. I don't need
yeah,
anything. I just want to know more. And
yeah.
I'm willing to do that for other people too.
Yeah, we've built this general distrust in society, which our phones are also beaming at us because something bad's happening somewhere in the world, and you're hyper aware of it all the
Hmm.
time. And but when you look up and actually speak to people from most places, the emotional structure of humans beings is the same everywhere, and increasingly societal structures are also similar, especially economically speaking, right? So people have everyone is eventually a person who's going through something, and I think working with
Hmm.
people from various paths, I think, exposes you to that. And people one thing that I miss about Google is especially because I moved every 2 or 3 years across different countries, I was always in a new office with access to a whole new bunch of interesting
Hmm.
people with different journeys, which I don't have access to as much anymore. And the office can be
Yeah.
a place to create those bonds and talk to strangers, which is also reducing. And I think remote work has also done that, like the pleasantries we used to have at the start of a meeting room, and
Hmm.
so all of you can think back to some of the brainstorm sessions we had and like the beginnings of those, and I think those created bonds.
Yeah.
And now it's behind
Yeah.
cameras, and you just get to the chase, and people are like, okay, what do you want of me? And it's just becoming more transactional. So I think it's
Yeah.
your effort to or realization that working with different people gave you that perspective, I think is it's something people can learn from, no matter what, whether it's a global team they work in, whether it's an office as small or as big as I
Yeah.
think um,
Yeah. And I think on that, like, there are still times when I'm not in the mood.
yeah,
I think
of
you
course,
can, I do identify more as an introvert. And I think I had a fallacy in my mind that you had to be an extrovert to network.
yeah,
And, that's not true. I think you maybe have to get yourself in the right mindset if you're an introvert, but, you pick the times when you do it, and then you pick the times when maybe you're not up for it and you just want a little more peace and quiet and you
yeah,
pace yourself. But um, I think you just have to make a little bit more effort, perhaps. But
yeah,
it's completely doable. And I think because of all of that remote stuff, that is also why I think more about the people in my immediate surroundings. And
yeah,
I am actually quite grateful that I go into the university every day because I see people there.
it's cool.
And it is quite a interesting group of people from different places, different
Yeah,
perspectives, all different, things. But I do agree, in the remote world, I think it makes you just have to try a little harder with the people you do have access to because of
yeah,
that connection is harder to make.
yeah. And eventually, you should do whatever feels authentic to you, right? Which is one of your values. And I think this is true for
Right.
everybody. That doesn't add pressure to anything that you're doing if it feels authentic to you.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, we've been talking way longer than we thought we would. I've enjoyed this so
Yes.
much, and I would continue to explore so many of these themes. But you've clearly built a wide world view um, through
Hmm.
your
Thank you.
experience and everything. What would be something that you'd want to leave people with? Anyone who's listening might be in an exhausted, burnt out state, might be dealing with a transition, questions of purpose. If there's just overarchingly something you'd like to leave listeners with before we end this amazing episode.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that if you're in a transition or if you're burned out, you probably need to take a beat, and you probably need to take a longer beat than you even realize. After the layoff, I thought, oh, I'll take a couple months, then I'll get back out there. And because of so many reasons, that just wasn't a long enough time. And when I was trying to force myself to do these things, like force myself to blog, force myself to go work at this nonprofit, force myself to go try these other things, it it was exactly that. It was forced, and so it wasn't right. And then I failed, and then I felt worse about failing, and it sort of became this vicious cycle where um, you have to really give yourself the time to think about it and put low stakes and low pressure on things. And I think you talked about that for yourself, and to me, I wish I had done that. And I think that's the right approach. Is you don't have to monetize everything that you do. You can go pick up pickleball if you want. You don't have to make money from it. You can spend time on things that don't make money. You can spend time on things that maybe you aren't very good at, or that you try it once and you say, I hate that so much. Like, that's okay. You don't have to be embarrassed about it. I've felt embarrassed when I failed at things, and I spent too much time sitting in that feeling versus moving on to something else that's going to bring me more fulfillment. So, I think that would be how I would change. I If I were to go back, is I would probably just expand my horizons to different things earlier, sooner, with lower pressure on it. And that being said, things did still work out. So I'm grateful
Exactly.
for that.
Yeah.
I'm in a place now where I'm really happy, and you can't really dwell on the past of how long you spent on something, or why did I go to that job that I didn't like. I think it's more important to think about what's here and now, and kind of be grateful for those things that brought you there, and be able to release them and say, like the Marie Kondo of your career, say, thank you so much, this no longer serves me, and release it, and move on.
Great. Couldn't have said it better. Thank you so much, Kate, for joining us, and being such an amazing friend,
Thank
colleague,
you.
person in my life. It means a lot that people like you are helping me, do something that might help other people
Same.
build,
Yes.
feel more emotionally sustainable, because I think we can all do with that in society. So
Yes,
again,
I hope
yeah.
everyone buys your book. It's a great guide. And I look forward to reading it once it's actually published, other than the early peaks that I've seen. But I think this is important work, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Kate. Again, I'm Anmol Didan. I work with people one on one as well. So if you're interested, check us out on wideworldview.com, and yeah, look forward to maybe hearing from some of you. Cool. Thank you.
If you enjoyed that, please do give us a like, share this with someone who you think it might help, and give us a subscribe. All those things that you know the drill. I also work with people one on one, so if you want to work with me directly, reach out to wideworldview.com. Thank you. Have a great day.